teacher Ava, and today we are reading The Curious Garden by Peter Brown. I'm curious about the word curious. Do you know what it means? Yeah, it means to be excited or interested in learning about something. And you know what? I am excited to learn about what this garden is so curious about. All right, let's find out.
The Curious Garden. There once was a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors. As you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. However, there was one boy who loved being outside. Even on drizzly days, while everyone else stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through his neighborhood. It was on one such morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to the tracks. The railway had stopped working ages ago, and since Liam had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. Liam ran up the stairs, pushed open the door, and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. Wildflowers and plants were the last thing he had expected to find up there. But when he took a closer look, it became clear that the plants were dying. They needed a gardener. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help. So he returned to the railway the very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems, but the plants patiently waited while Liam found better ways of gardening. La la la. As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and the plants began to feel like a real garden. Most gardens stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It wanted to explore. The tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up farther and farther down the tracks and were closely followed by more delicate plants. Over the next few months, Liam and the Curious Garden explored every corner of the railway. After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season, and for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit the plants. Rather than waste his winter worrying about the garden, Liam spent it preparing for spring. After 3 cold months of snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. Winter had taken a toll on the garden. But thanks to Liam's planning, his handy tools, and a little help from the sun, the plants soon awoke from their winter sleep. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and mosses set out first. They popped up farther and farther from the railway and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. The garden was especially curious about old, forgotten things. A few plants popped up where they didn't belong. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. But the most surprising things that popped up were the new gardeners. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed. But of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it all began. The end.
The garden was so curious. It spread from one side of the city to the other, into all the nooks and crannies and the lost and forgotten things, and it made the city bright and beautiful. And a bunch of gardeners popped up, right? Because a lot of the plants couldn't grow without gardeners like Liam. Do you remember some of the things Liam did to help the garden grow? Yeah, he watered it, he pruned it, that means he cut all the old leaves off, and he sang to it. Fa la la. Plants really like it when you sing to them and tell them how beautiful they're growing. It helps them to get big and bright and beautiful. So what we're going to do is we are going to sprout our own seed. Now sprouting means that when you start a plant and when the roots and stems start to grow in a plant. And we're going to do that by using beans. I have two sets of beans. I have a kidney bean and a pinto bean. And you're also going to need a paper towel folded in half like this and wet. You want it wet but not soaked. You can stick it under in the sink and then squeeze all the water out so it's damp. And then you're going to need a plastic baggie or a glass jar. Now what you're going to do for the plastic baggie one is you're going to take your wet paper towel and you're going to stick it inside of the plastic bag like this, so it's nice and flat. And then you're going to take your beans. I think I might do one of each. I might do one kidney and one pinto bean. I'm going to take them and stick them inside of the bag, between the bag and the paper towel, so you can see them. And then you're going to zip your bag up. And then what you can do is tape this to your windowsill at home, onto your window. And so your bean can get lots of sunlight. And then over the next 3 or 4 days, I want you to keep an eye on it and see if anything changes. Maybe some water condensation will start showing on the bag. Maybe your beans will even start changing. Maybe you'll see some green in there, okay? So keep a close eye on it. And then, or you can use a jar. Now the jar is the same thing. You're going to get a wet paper towel. I put 2 pieces in there and you're going to stick them in your jar. And then you can take your beans, same thing that we did with the plastic bag, but we're going to stick them into the side of the jar like this so we can watch them grow. Okay, and you're going to leave the lid off of this, but maybe every couple days you can sprinkle just a little bit of water, just like a mist of water to keep your paper towel nice and wet. All right, and you're going to keep an eye on this too to see if they're changing. What do you think is going to happen? It's going to be very exciting. Okay, so make sure you watch your bean and you can even sing to it. You can tell it stories and encourage it to grow. All right, I hope you have fun and I hope your beans sprout really big. Bye-bye.